Okay, well, welcome everyone. Welcome to this exciting workshop about mosquitoes and how to control them. My name is Todd Larson, and I'm one of the co-chairs of College Park's Committee for a Better Environment. We're a sponsor of tonight's event. So thank you so much for coming. If you'd like, you can introduce yourself in the chat, which is there's a button at the bottom of your screen. You can click the chat button, it'll bring up the chat, and you can send messages to everyone. If you'd like to say your name and what neighborhood you're from in College Park, or if you're visiting us from a community outside of College Park and joining this evening, I'll go ahead and put the town you're from outside of College Park. A few words about Committee for a Better Environment. The committee works to address environmental concerns that affect the quality of life of residents of College Park. We're chartered by the mayor and council of College Park, and a goal of providing guidance and leadership to council, as well as service and outreach to the community on environmental issues. So the Committee for a Better Environment does some community projects, such as there's a permaculture garden that we have that's right at the top of the trolley trail where Rhode Island Avenue meets Greenbelt Road. You'll see a number of plants there with markers on them telling you which plants they are, and those are all part of our permaculture garden, and gives people in the community a good idea how they could do permaculture at home. We also do community education projects like tonight's webinar. We've also done like training sessions on using rain barrels and how to stop water runoff from your lawn and get rebates from the county for doing so. And at those events, we've sold over 150 rain barrels, and now the city regularly sells rain barrels. You can buy them from the city of College Park. Last year, we gave away 56 of what are called GAT mosquito traps, which you'll hear about more tonight. We gave those to a number of College Park residents to try out and see how they thought of them. And based on that, the city now sells those GAT traps. And these are non-toxic traps that use water to attract the mosquitoes. And then the mosquitoes get stuck on little sticky cards. And when you get a sticky card full of mosquitoes, just throw them away. It's very convenient. I have them in my home. I really like them. So we'll hear more about those. And yeah, I'll just say nobody really likes mosquitoes. They're not a favorite insect of most people. And at the same time, we want to be careful about how we try to control mosquitoes and make sure that the way we control them is not toxic and harmful to ourselves or to beneficial insects around us. So there's a lot of things you can do to control mosquitoes and keep them away from you while protecting nature. And we're going to hear about that this evening. So we're really fortunate tonight to have two guests joining us. One is Stephen Panosian, who's a contractual agriculture inspector, and also Catherine Love, who's a contractual agriculture inspector also at the Maryland Department of Agriculture Mosquito Control section. So it's great that they're here to join us, and I'm going to let them take it away and do a presentation. After the presentation or during the presentation, if you have questions, you can put them into the chat. At the end of the presentations, we're going to unmute the participants, and then you can directly ask questions that way as well. So you have two ways to ask questions. You can type them into the chat, or at the end of the presentations, you can verbally ask questions. And we're going till about 8:30 this evening. So from there, I'll let Stephen and Catherine take it away.
Thank you, Todd. It's an honor to speak to the residents of College Park tonight. And there are about 3,500 species of mosquitoes globally. Tonight, we're going to focus on a specific species that tends to be a pest to homeowners, including homeowners here in College Park. And after I describe the Asian tiger mosquito, that specific species, my colleague Catherine will discuss in a little more detail the Gravidates trap. Some of you may be familiar with. So I'm going to get my slideshow ready. Can everybody see this?
Not yet.
Not. Bear with me just.
That's good.
That's better. How's that? So this was a slide show that prior to the pandemic, our previous office manager, Janine Darthy, presented to various neighborhood associations. And she's since retired, and I've gone ahead and edited this slide deck just for to add a few more topics and to polish a few more details about the Asian tiger mosquito. I will begin our presentations tonight with a disclaimer that whatever product we might mention during the show or during the talk rather, we're not endorsing any particular product, nor is our contracting organization, the Maryland Department of Agriculture, endorsing any product. But we can explain what they do and answer any of your questions you may have. In order to know a bit about the Asian tiger mosquito specifically, let's learn a little bit about the biology of mosquitoes in general. In our state of Maryland, scientists have recorded over 60 different species, ranging from the shores on the East Coast all the way to the Western Panhandle. And these species have different habits, and they live in different habitats. The majority are active during sunrise and sunset times, and the majority of these species are wilderness breeders. The center picture you see below it is a flooded area in College Park, not too far away from the railway lines. And the bottom right photograph is a clogged stormwater drain. These are common breeding areas in the wilderness where many mosquitoes breed. However, the Asian tiger mosquito is different, and we're going to learn why. Mosquitoes are different, males and females, in the fact that only females bite. And the females bite because they need proteins from the blood of the organism they bite in order to produce their eggs. And mosquitoes will lay their eggs on stagnant water. It has to be still, motionless. And if it has any kind of plant matter or algae in it, the better, because once the eggs hatch, that's what they feed on. And mosquitoes can lay but roughly 100 eggs, some more, some less, in just a little bit of water, a teaspoonful of water, 2 to 3 milliliters. And the organism mosquitoes bite depend on the species. Some bite humans, some bite other land mammals, squirrels, deer, pets. Some mosquitoes prefer to bite birds. Reptiles and the amphibians and even earthworms have been known to be bitten by specific species of mosquitoes as well. And the top picture you see here, that the mosquito's abdomen looks reddish, and that means it's biting and ingesting blood into its abdomen. And the bottom picture shows a mosquito on the surface of water laying its eggs. Mosquitoes undergo complete metamorphosis. That's an organism that in each stage of its development changes its physical appearance. And I want you to pay very close attention to this dotted line. The dotted line represents the surface of water. Now, the process begins where an adult female mosquito lands on the surface of the water and lays her eggs. These eggs can hatch within a few days, or it could take months if there's a drought and the water level needs to rise in order to hydrate the eggs. But once the eggs are hydrated, they hatch, and larvae are the first living stage of mosquitoes. And they molt 4 times, and they ingest a lot of plant matter in order to build their bodies up. And that process takes several days. And after their 4th instar, they shed their exoskeleton for the last time. Then they metamorphosize into a pupa. The larvae are wigglers or wrigglers, but the pupae are different. They're tumblers, and they do not feed, but they do change their body in 24 to 48 hours, and they rise out of the water and fly away as adults. If all the conditions are right, an egg to an adult can take perhaps 7 days, typically a bit longer in the wild, maybe 10 days or so. But the important thing that our viewers should note tonight is that mosquitoes need water to lay their eggs and then to breed, to grow. Without the water, you won't have mosquitoes. And that's very important for homeowners in College Park to understand. Mosquitoes can fly several miles, and they can fly 10 to 20 feet above ground. Tiger mosquitoes are different. They're more territorial. They may only fly 100 yards or so from where they were hatched, and they typically don't fly very high above the ground. Many homeowners complain their children get bitten head to toe from mosquitoes, and that's because the mosquitoes don't fly very high. If you're outdoors in your yard and you get bitten a lot on your legs, those mosquitoes were probably tiger mosquitoes, because they might not fly higher than above your waist. Mosquitoes at sunrise and sunset are attracted to white lights. However, Asian tiger mosquitoes are different. They are only active during the daylight hours. So if you try to buy a bug zapper to kill Asian tiger mosquitoes in your yard, you're wasting your money, because they're totally useless. Mosquitoes in general focus on the smell of carbon dioxide from an organism's breath. They also smell the acids and ammonia in your sweat, and they can also sense your body heat. And they know to lay their eggs on stagnant water, because they can also smell any carbon dioxide or gases emitted from the decaying vegetation. This is a close-up photograph of an Asian tiger mosquito. It's very dark in color with pronounced white stripes, white bands along its legs. And its central feature, starting from its head through its thorax, is what many people call a racing stripe. And it kind of makes sense, because they fly very fast, and people hardly notice they were bitten until after the mosquito flies away. Now, Asian tiger mosquitoes are considered an invasive species. They're not natural mosquitoes in North America. They came to the United States in a shipment of tires from Southeast Asia. They arrived in Texas in the mid-1980s. And by 1987, they reached the state of Maryland. And they managed to thrive around human habitation. And in Southeast Asia, their natural environment were bamboo shoots and tree holes. And they've managed to live in bamboo shoots and tree holes here in the United States. People use bamboo a lot for ornamental display in their gardens. Tree holes are very common. and both bamboo shoots and tree holes catch rainwater. And Asian tiger mosquitoes have also learned to lay their eggs in artificial containers. Now, those are any kind of man-made objects that will hold rainwater. And you'll see examples of that in just a moment. And just as important, mosquitoes are not only a nuisance when they bite, they're capable of spreading viruses, including West Nile virus. And that's a virus that the Maryland Department of Health takes very seriously. So Asian tiger mosquitoes are persistent and aggressive biters throughout the daytime. And they will bite both people and animals. And as a sign of their aggression, they will follow people into homes and even into their vehicles. They are very hard to eliminate from around your home. It requires making sure there's no particular object around your home where they can lay their eggs. And if people are not conscientious about removing water containers around their home, homeowners will stop using their yards. And if businesses have gardens or flower arrangements, they could also drive away customers because that could also attract Asian tiger mosquitoes. So what are common artificial containers? Well, I have 3 columns here, and let's start with the left column. You see a recycling bin tipped over on its side, but if you look inside, it still contains water. We have a watering can left out in the open, and we have a tarp. All of those objects, the folds of the tarp can hold just as much water as the watering can and the recycling bin. So the water has to be dumped from those objects about once a week. Here we have a corrugated tube at the end of a downspout by a person's home. Now the corrugated tube, the ridges in the tube will retain water. Not all the water flows out of a corrugated tube like that. So we recommend homeowners put a fine mesh cloth at the end of that tube so mosquitoes can't fly in. At the bottom is a piece of trash in someone's yard. It looks like the liner from a pickup truck. And you see in the corner how water has gotten algae growing in it. Mosquitoes would love that. All the homeowner has to do is dump the water out of that, and that will eliminate mosquitoes from breeding there. If we go to the center column, starting at the top, you see these rain gutters are clogged with a lot of plant material. Leaves and other objects that get blown into the gutters will clog the gutters and prevent water from flowing. And when the water puddles inside the gutter, mosquitoes will come and lay their eggs. So make sure you clean your gutters regularly so the water will flow out and away from your home. Also, be sure to clean any trash laying around your home. The center photo shows a can and a jar, both containing rainwater. If you look at the water line and you see some dark objects, those are mosquito larvae breathing at the water's surface. All you have to do is dump that jar onto your lawn. The larvae will die, and no mosquito can come back and lay their eggs. Be sure to check under your deck. This is the bottom photograph shows a tray that contained rainwater. Mosquitoes love that. If we move to the rightmost column, we see a mosquito control technician siphoning out larvae from the underside of an outdoor table. Those little sections are very well supported, and they catch a lot of the rainwater, and that's all that mosquitoes need to come and lay their eggs. For pet owners, make sure you replace the water in your pet's bowl daily. If it gets tipped over, shake it out, because it could also catch rainwater, whether it's right side up, upside down, even on its side. The bottom corner photograph shows a homeowner's trying to protect their kiddie pool, and they placed a tarp cover on top, but you see the tarp cover has collected rainwater. All the homeowner has to do is dump that rainwater out. Otherwise, you see it's also got some plant and leaf material in there. Mosquitoes will come, lay their eggs, and breed. Excuse me. Here are some more examples. Starting with the left column, we see this used to be a working pond in somebody's garden, and it's fallen into disrepair, but you see it still retains water, and the water is full of algae. Whoever's responsible for that needs to dump that water out. A lot of College Park residents like to decorate their property with flowers and pots, and both the flower pot and the dishes underneath contain enough water for an Asian tiger mosquito to come and lay its eggs. So be sure once a week you come and dump that water out in all the flower pots around your home. The bottom leftmost photo shows the stand of a basketball post you might have for your children in your driveway. Now these posts, these stands are filled either with water
Oh, sorry, everyone. It looks like Stephen had a low battery, so I think he'll be joining us again. I'll just give him a
Sorry, I
moment.
couldn't unmute myself. I was trying to type out a message. Let me see if I can pull up Stephen's slide show. Sorry about that. All right. Do you mind if I screen share?
Please do.
Okay. Is that visible?
Yeah, that looks good. You'll just
Okay.
have to start slideshow, under slideshow.
Under slideshow, yes. Sorry, the newer version of Power was probably not that new anymore. From beginning. All right. We're gonna skip through some of the many examples of containers, but you get the idea. I mean, anything that holds water really is going to be a prime habitat for Asian tiger mosquitoes. Stephen did touch briefly on the fact that they're really the ones most closely associated with human habitation, and the ones that are going to probably cause you the most aggravation during your day. So really anything you can do to monitor your area to make sure that any small bodies of water that are you good? I think you might need to be unmuted again. Hey, Stephen. All right. And oh, you good?
Here I am.
Okay.
I apologize for the technical difficulty. Thank you for your patience. Let's see.
Do you want me to just let's see, do you know how far the GAT traps are down the line?
Just a little bit further.
Okay.
Am I sharing my screen?
No, I'm sharing mine currently.
Okay.
Do you just want to tell me when to hit next slide? Will that work for you?
Bear with me just a sec.
All right, let me stop sharing, and then I think you should have the ability to do it.
Is that better?
Yeah, I kind of wrapped up the habitat
Okay,
section,
we
if that's
can
okay.
we can forward that. Did you discuss repellents at all?
Nope.
Okay. I would recommend College Park residents visiting the CDC website. These are the active ingredients that the CDC recommends for repelling mosquitoes. They've been tested, and we also recommend you read the instructions carefully. 2 of the active ingredients are not recommended for children younger than 3 years old. And in that situation, mosquito netting is preferred if you're going to bring them outdoors or leave them outdoors for a long period of time. Now, when you apply your insect repellent, you'll have to apply it repeatedly throughout the day, and just follow the directions, whatever it recommends, every 2 hours, 4 hours, whatever. Remember, you're perspiring, so it's going to dilute and wash off whatever you've applied, so you will have to reapply it. Dermatologists do not recommend buying products that combine sunscreen and insect repellent. It's better to use separate sunscreen and repellent products. And you always apply the sunscreen first and the repellent second. There are products that are permethrin treated. Permethrin is an insecticide. Don't confuse permethrin, the medicinal permethrin, with insecticide permethrin. Permethrin is available as a spray, and you don't spray that on your skin. You only spray it on your clothing, and we recommend you spray your clothing outdoors where it's well ventilated. And if you're very interested, there are clothing that are pre-treated with permethrin, and the sprays or the pre-treated permethrin last multiple washes. And then at that point, you'll have to reapply permethrin. But that's another option in addition to insect repellent. Now, Catherine, if you'd like to jump back in and discuss mosquito traps.
Sure. I think you guys should have the GAT traps that came from the company Biogents, I believe. Stephen and I both went to demonstrate these traps with actually another community within College Park. We don't use them ourselves, but they are very easy to set up, and we're also interested in the results that these are getting. So we would love to hear back from whoever is, kind of your spokesperson for all of this, either Todd or Brenda. It would be great if we could get a little bit of the data back on this to see if they're effective. Biogents gives a lot of great information on their website if there's any more questions after this. That's how I learned about most of this myself. One thing to keep in mind is that these gravid traps do only target the Asian tiger mosquito. However, since that is the one that's going to be the most persistent around your home, that makes it pretty useful. They are attracted to the water and grass mixture, the hay infusion that you put into the bottom of the trap, that exudes chemicals that they are attracted to for egg laying. Another thing to keep in mind is that these traps don't trap any Asian tiger mosquito. They're going to be most attractive to the ones that are egg bound, the ones that are gravid. So they've already taken a blood meal and their eggs have developed, they've already made it, and they're ready to lay their eggs. What this trap is designed for is to limit the population around your home. It's supposed to be attractive to the Asian tiger mosquito, so it wants to lay its eggs there. And then when those eggs hatch, the sticky card or the oil that you put inside the trap will be what takes them out. So they're not designed for mosquitoes that have not taken a blood meal yet, which is pretty important to keep in mind for them. Again, very, very easy to put together if none of you have set them up already. The black bucket that you see on the bottom, that gets filled up with water, to which you add a handful of grass, hay. I believe other things that were mentioned were rabbit feed pellets are a good option, or a yeast pellet. These all create a sort of organic substance for the water to decompose and then send out attractive fumes for the mosquitoes to be attracted to. That gets filled up to the point where there are slits in the bucket and you can no longer fill it up anymore. It'll just pour out. Once that is in place, you then put the clear plastic container on. That you can optionally coat with, Biogens recommends cooking oil or an insecticide. I don't, however, have the information of what kind of insecticide you're supposed to use. Stephen, you might know something about that. Once this part of it is over, you can jump in if you want. The community that we previously talked to will seem pretty interested in using the cooking oil, and we're going to see later on this season how they did with that. They are designed to be used with the sticky cards though, and that gets inserted up at the top of the transparent part of the container. And the sticky card is what will kill the mosquito, well, trap the mosquito once they emerge as eggs. The mosquito enters through the top funnel. So really those are all the components that you need. This is a passive trap, so it's not using any power. It's not using, the kind of stuff that we use in the lab, which is CO2 or specialized lures to attract the mosquitoes. It's not using any batteries. You can just fill it up with water, put it in your yard and forget about it until you need to, check the sticky cards or re-oil the inside of the canister. The cards and the water should be replaced about monthly, probably more frequently in very hot weather or if you're having very high mosquito populations. No, I guess this says to replace weekly. Really just, check on it to see if it's catching anything, and if it's full up, you'll probably want to replace the card. The best placement for these, you'll want to place it on the ground in a sun-protected, wind-protected area of the yard. However, you don't want to hide it inside of a bush or a plant. Part of the attractiveness of the trap to the mosquitoes is the black funnel. This is actually something that they're drawn to, and they need to be able to see it in order to access the trap. If you try to hide it completely out of view, it's probably not going to be as effective. If you have multiple gat traps in your yard, you're probably going to want to place them at least 50 feet apart. Otherwise, each one is probably going to be, if they're all clustered together, they're not going to have as big of an impact to protect your yard. The best way that these traps work is if everyone is in your community is really working together to know what makes a good tiger mosquito habitat. So again, this is everything that Stephen covered. Gutters, corrugated pipes, trash can lids. It is a community effort to control mosquitoes in your community. Unfortunately, the shortcut solutions of just immediately cutting to spraying, that kind of wipes out a lot of the insects in your yard and doesn't do much in terms of long-term mosquito control. The best thing you can do here is prevention. And we have a reminder at the bottom that bug lights are not good mosquito control. Those will take out mostly a lot of moths and a lot of the pollinators that you guys are probably know are kind of already on the decline anyway. And I think that's pretty much it for what I had on gat traps. Again, if you have any questions later on, the setup is very easy. And we are interested in hearing back from you about your gat traps. All right, Stephen, you all ready?
And just to further add what Catherine was discussing, it takes a community effort to really reduce the populations of Asian tiger mosquitoes in the neighborhood. If your neighborhood association, homeowners association has newsletters or they communicate to all the residents with social media, during the spring and summer, it's very helpful to add mosquito control reminders to in all your communications. Having community cleanups are also a very good strategy. Elderly residents have hard time maintaining their property, whether it's mowing their lawns, cleaning any trash, or cleaning their gutters. So helping certain citizens in your community with their maintenance goes a long way. Having tire pickups and bulk trash days also is very helpful because you're eliminating containers of water. And if you need help, various religious groups, scouts, some high school students, anybody who's looking to earn hours for community service would be valuable sources of labor for this. It could be on a monthly basis, or even once during the summer can make a big dent. And they can wear PPE, they can wear their spray, and they can assist with helping maintain the neighborhood. If you have a homeowners association, you can assign specific people to be a captain and patrol people's yards and give them helpful hints and recommendations on how they can maintain their property to eliminate places where Asian tiger mosquitoes breed. If you have block parties, you can contact us. We have exhibits we can lend to help increase awareness. A lot of neighborhoods have people coming in on a temporary basis, or they have new people moving in, maybe aren't aware of Asian tiger mosquitoes. So making people aware is a very critical part in having people cooperate in terms of mosquito control. And if your association is very serious about reducing the nuisances caused by mosquitoes, you can adopt bylaws. But having a bylaw on a book isn't effective if it isn't enforced. And you're going to need to have block captains. You're going to need to have yard inspections, and let residents know that, hey, if they don't clean their property, if they don't dump the stagnant water that's forming on their property, it's going to create a nuisance not just for that particular resident, but for their neighboring residents. Asian tiger mosquitoes can fly very easily over or through fences into neighboring yards. And some take-home summary points. Please, please, please remember that without water around your home, Asian tiger mosquitoes can't breed. So when you eliminate the water, you eliminate the places where Asian tiger mosquitoes can lay their eggs. And you can eliminate the water by emptying, covering, or removing any outdoor containers that catch the rainwater. And when you want to enjoy your backyards, remember, use sunscreen first, then apply your repellent. And mosquito control is only effective if all your neighbors and your friends are aware of how to reduce and eliminate mosquito breeding areas. And lastly, you can save your money and don't buy any bug lamps because they're totally ineffective against Asian tiger mosquitoes, and they don't make a big dent in other species of mosquitoes either. So our field office has a general number. We're also on the internet under the Maryland Department of Agriculture. And now we're happy to answer anybody's questions.
I did just want to add one more thing that I forgot about the GAT traps. I know we got a couple questions last time about why the mosquitoes don't just fly directly up and out of the funnel, and they can. That can happen, but it's designed so that that clear part in the middle, they're going to want to, the first thing they're going to want to do is try to fly towards the light. So that's why that part is translucent. So the majority of them are going to want to escape through, the first place that they see light, and are going to end up flying into the sides of that container. And if people are applying cooking oil to the sides of it, that'll ideally stick to their wings, keep them from flying, or they'll get stuck right onto the sticky card. And that's all I wanted to add.
Well, I want to thank both Stephen and Catherine for the presentation. It had a lot of useful information in it. And Brenda is now going to open it up so that folks can ask questions live. As she's doing that, Fazul Kabir asked, he's one of our council members, he asked, will MDA do mosquito spraying in College Park this year? So he asked that question in the chat.
Yeah, College Park is currently on our spray schedule. Me and Stephen trap in College Park for surveillance. How often do we do that, Stephen? Is that generally 2 times a month? Sorry, I know the unmuting is. I think normally what we do is we'll place a couple traps within College Park, kind of spread out all over the location. Every this is eluding me. It happens a couple times a month. We'll have one major day where we'll do it, and then we'll do it again for a catch-up day. So how often do you think spraying happens, Stephen? Is that twice a month, maybe?
Typically, we cycle through College Park twice a month, and depending on the number of mosquitoes we catch at a particular location, we may or may not spray. If there's a large amount, then spraying becomes a priority. But spraying for mosquitoes, we have sprays that are adulticides. They kill the adult mosquitoes flying about. And spraying is also the last resort in mosquito control, because sometimes the mist doesn't penetrate because of the plant and the foliage. And mosquitoes may be flying around, so it's harder to hit a moving target. The best and most effective means of reducing mosquito populations without using chemicals is reducing the areas of stagnant water around a home. And Asian tiger mosquitoes are container breeders. The containers provide security. Even if you had sprayed an area where there are tons of tires, it's very hard for the spray to penetrate inside the tires. The containers are protective, and they shelter the eggs and the larvae as they develop. So getting rid of containers or covering containers like rain barrels, so insects, including mosquitoes, can't fly in or fly out, is a priority. Either eliminate the containers, you cover them, or you drain them. That's the most effective means. And we do cycle twice a month in the city of College Park. College Park is pretty big, so we have it in sections. So that's why we don't do it all at once. And we do trap a number of locations. Some locations we know we may catch more mosquitoes than others, but we do try to cycle through all the locations in all areas just to survey and get a good idea of what the mosquito populations are. As we were discussing earlier, we've had a pretty dry spring, and certain areas mosquito counts are low, but other areas mosquito counts are higher. And I think part of that is due to the pandemic. A lot of people have been home, so they've been able to do a lot of maintenance on their homes and in their gardens and then surrounding properties. But a lot of common areas like parks and around schools, before the children started going back to school, were not maintained. So those were areas that a lot of stagnant water was noticed, and a lot of containers were not removed or drained. So now that the pandemic is starting to wane, we're getting a better handle on, and people are becoming vaccinated, and more people are socializing. A lot of these common areas are going to be used more, so they'll be maintained better. But if we go back to the metamorphosis slide at the beginning of the presentation, remember, mosquitoes won't breed without water. And whatever we can do around our homes to eliminate standing water is the best method. And you do that for free without using any chemicals, without any other type of traps.
Stephen, I was going to ask, sometimes when it rains a lot, some of our yards accumulate standing pools of water. It just flows down to the lowest part of the yard. And if that happens, does putting a mosquito dunk in there, is that effective?
It depends how long the water sits. If the rainwater, and you can tell it's rainwater if it's fairly clear after a day or so, and you see the puddles and you can see to the bottom of the puddle, that means it's recent water. And if it evaporates or percolates into the soil within about a week, you won't have a problem. Even if a mosquito tries to lay its eggs and the puddle evaporates, or the puddle percolates into your lawn, even if the eggs hatch, they won't survive. They need standing water for at least 10 days, maybe 2 weeks. If you have water lasting that long, then there's an issue, and you'll have to find a better way to drain it. A mosquito dunk, there are various competing brands. Some last 4 weeks, some last 6 weeks. And if you have something like a bird bath or like a little outdoor pond, artificial pond in your yard, you might consider that because they won't harm fish. But if you do have fish in your pond, they will eat mosquito eggs too. So that's a natural mosquito control.
I do think placing a dunk in, yeah, a temporary standing body of water, I think is still an okay use of it though. As long as it's like in accordance with the label and everything.
It may not hurt, but it's a matter of time. If it evaporates within a few days, it's really overkill.
Right.
There are areas even around our office in College Park where the soil has clay, and water won't percolate through clay unless you dig and you dig out the clay and you replace it with topsoil, a couple of feet of topsoil. Some homeowners are devoted gardeners, and they may go to that length to improve their lawns and gardens. Others may not. So depending on what's in the soil also affects on how quickly the water drains. But mosquito dunks dissolve in water. They're specific to mosquitoes. They don't harm bees or anything like that. But they can last 4 to 6 weeks, or depending on the brand. And if after 2 weeks the water's evaporated or percolated, you'll have that dunk just sitting on your lawn, what's left of it. But they are effective. Some people will put a dunk in their bird bath, for example. If they don't want to change the water weekly, they can just leave a dunk, and then once that's dissolved, they can add a second dunk. Or for a pond or a bird bath, there are ripplers, something to make motion in the water, make waves in the water. Mosquitoes won't land at that point. That's another option. And some of those ripplers are solar powered, or some are battery powered. Those are other options. Some people are totally averse to putting chemicals. So that's why I mentioned these other options. But mosquito dunks are safe for the environment and for plant life as well. So if you have a very large area and you expect the water to remain for a number of days or couple of weeks, in terms of weeks, not just days, but weeks, then that's a good alternative.
Thanks. Brenda, is the floor open for anyone to ask questions now? Is everybody able to go off mute?
I believe they are.
Cool. So go ahead and feel free to ask questions. We have 2 experts here. Well, while people are thinking of questions, I was wondering, do either of you, Catherine or Stephen, do you find either DEET or picaridin to be more or less effective? Does it matter which of the repellents you use? Has there been research on that?
I'm kind of a bad test subject. I neither react to mosquito bites anymore or am that attractive to them. So I've kind of stopped using repellent altogether.
Good for you.
Yeah, DEET is supposed to be very effective, and permethrin is an actual insecticide. Like it'll kill on contact. You have anything to add, Stephen?
I would just recommend whatever you can get over the counter, the name brands. I found, and this is just my personal experience, products with DEET to be effective. But again, it isn't just you spray yourself once in the morning and you're good the whole day. We work a lot outdoors, and I find I do have to spray myself multiple times during the day just because I'm out and I'm perspiring. And it wears off. Mosquitoes will train themselves to smell a living organism, and part of what the repellent does is it creates a different aroma which confuses the mosquito. But it's only effective if you use it regularly. Because once you sweat it off, then you're just another target for them at that point. So, you just follow the directions. But what's on the market now, it has been tested. Whether one's better than the other, I can't tell you, but I follow the CDC and their recommendations. So the FDA, whatever they say is legitimate, then those are the agencies to pay attention to. So
I guess one of the things people are most afraid of with mosquitoes is the presence of like West Nile virus. And have we seen that in Maryland in recent years?
Yeah, we pretty much trap that every year. As far as I know, Stephen, Triple E is the one that is overall of more concern because it's a more pernicious virus. But since I've been here, we haven't trapped and tested positive for any Eastern equine encephalitis. But yeah, we get positive West Niles, like a handful at least every year.
we trap mosquitoes and we do test them for both those viruses. Now, in our county, we, as Catherine had mentioned, we have not had a case of Eastern equine encephalitis in any of our mosquito pools. And that's a good thing because it's a rare virus, but it has a very high mortality rate. It's almost 50%. And even if you do survive, it's very harmful to the human physiology. So you're not going to be in good shape if you survive. So, and there's no vaccine and there's no cure, but it's very rare. Now, there have been cases further up north in New England. They had an outbreak and then they were concerned. So it's one virus that we stay vigilant on. West Nile virus is also a concern. Many healthy people will have few, if any, symptoms. But people with weakened immune systems, people like the elderly or people with other health issues are more susceptible to West Nile virus. And very young children whose immune systems haven't developed yet can be susceptible to West Nile virus. And that birds are carriers of West Nile virus. Mosquitoes bite birds. Some of the species that bite birds also bite humans, and that's how it spreads. So that's why we recommend wearing spray and long sleeve clothing and having netting for the infants, and also keeping your property dry. Keeping it clean and dry reduces the chances that mosquitoes are going to breed around your area.
Yeah, like you might have covered that briefly, but the primary vector of West Nile virus is a totally different species than what we covered. It's called Culex pipiens, and its favorite hosts are birds, and they're one of the, as Stephen covered before, one of the dusk dawn biters. So they're less likely to be biting a bunch of people anyway, but it does happen.
And Asian tiger mosquitoes are not very effective at transmitting West Nile virus, but they can. It's possible. So that's one reason why they pay attention to the Asian tiger mosquitoes. And there's one other point about West Nile virus starts to appear in mosquito pools during the summer. Sometimes end of July into August and September are the months that mosquitoes have been found positive. Now, that's not human cases, that's just mosquito cases. But when we find mosquito cases, that's a concern, and we have to ramp up our mosquito control efforts. Whether we put larvicides in standing water or we spray more frequently. And there can be issues with spraying. Residents have the option to say, don't spray around our block. They can contact Maryland Department of Agriculture and say, please don't spray. And we have to avoid them. And we just don't avoid that house. We have to avoid 600 feet circle around their homes. So there's no spray that will, the wind might blow onto their property. So that if you have a resident who does not want that service, they have to be very, very vigilant and keep their property mosquito free, because otherwise, there's really no other, there's no option at that point. That's why community cooperation in mosquito control is vital, because it can affect everybody, and one home that doesn't cooperate can be a breeding ground for the rest of the neighborhood.
Absolutely. So we do have the question section open now. So if folks would like to ask questions, you can either put them into the chat and I'll read them out loud, or you can unmute yourself and speak if you would like to. Just want to make sure everybody's questions get answered tonight. While we're waiting for that, I was wondering, there's been a number of bird deaths in not just Maryland, but Virginia and district as well. Have we figured out, is that from a virus that came from like mosquitoes or something? Or do we have, or is that a bacterial problem? Is it related to any of this?
The last thing that I heard, people were wondering if it was I don't know if you guys have heard of the mushrooms that are eating the rear ends of cicadas. They were wondering if it might have been tied. Sorry.
Yes, I read an interesting article about that in the Washington Post for anybody who wants to look it up. It's intriguing.
It's cool. Apparently that fungus has been with them. It's just like kind of a thing that they as a group have to live with. They were wondering if that might have had anything to do with it. And then the other speculation was that people might not have been cleaning their feeders and bird baths sufficiently, and maybe this has caused some sort of bird pandemic. But yeah, the last I heard, I didn't hear any consensus on that, but it's an interesting thing to follow. I think the last thing I heard was that they're actually asking people to just kind of stop feeding and providing bathing spots for a while, just to see if that would kind of nip it.
Interesting. And while we're on the topic of pests that you should avoid, there's also ticks in our yards. And do some of the same tips for mosquitoes apply to ticks, or are there some separate tips for reducing tick populations in your yards? Because I don't think people realize sometimes deer ticks can actually be in their yard. They think they're in the forest.
Ticks are a different problem than mosquitoes. Mosquitoes have been studied a lot longer. And unfortunately, there are fewer methods to reduce ticks in people's yards. But there are a few that are possible. The first is keeping lawns mowed. Ticks love tall grasses, and they're arachnids, and they stand on their hind legs, and with their front legs, they try to grab onto whatever organism walks by the tall grasses. They call that questing. It's looking for a host for a blood meal. And it could be a deer, could be other rodents, it could be a pet, it could be humans. So keeping grasses mowed at a low level goes a long way to eliminating the habitat of ticks. Another is creating about a yard or meters wide barrier of rocks around the perimeter of your yard. Ticks won't crawl or crawl over those rocks onto people's lawns. It's a natural barrier for ticks. So keeping your lawn mowed close to the ground, and then creating this rock barrier. Some people have rock barriers at the perimeter of their yards. As you mentioned earlier about water pooling at the bottom or at the end of a person's lawn, sometimes they will put a little rock formation to help spray the water as it flows down, or help prevent puddling at the end of a lawn. Those rock display or formations at the bottom also help create a barrier against ticks. But insecticides against ticks are nastier, and that's not something our office does. But ticks are more numerous. They live a lot longer than mosquitoes. They can live 2 to 3 years. A mosquito's life in the wild might only be roughly a month. And while give or take 100 mosquito eggs, a tick can lay hundreds to thousands of eggs. So ticks are an even bigger problem. And we're going to hear more about that. A lot of cases of Lyme disease are underreported here in the United States. And that's one of the diseases that the CDC says is on the increase. So the tick and flea collars for your pets. If you as soon as you come inside from working outdoors, check yourself for ticks. Keep your lawns mowed, and try to create a physical barrier from the woods with rocks. And there are some helpful guides on the internet about landscaping your yard to prevent ticks. So if you do a little bit of searching, you should find some suggestions.
Great, thanks for that advice. I just wanted to point out, Kate Kennedy had asked about if you can purchase gat traps from the city of College Park itself, and you can. So I put that into the chat, a link to the page. They're $50 for a set of 2, I believe. And you put 2 out, an average size yard in College Park, 2 gat traps would work. And they work much better though if all your neighbors also put out gat traps while doing all the other things that Stephen and Catherine said, which is to minimize water and so forth. So all those things combined together in multiple yards adjacent to each other is the way to go.
Yeah, the idea is
Okay.
to make that the most attractive spot you possibly can for the mosquito to go.
Do we have some other questions? Well, if not, Stephen and Catherine, is there anything parting words you'd like to leave us with this evening?
If you're going on a hike, tuck your pants into your socks. I live by this now. I don't go into the field without doing that anymore. That's a tick thing though, not a mosquito thing.
Good point. And as you said, you can have those clothes coated in permethrin as well.
Yeah.
Stephen, any parting words?
Just keep your property clean and dry. That's the best thing to keep not just mosquitoes and ticks, but all kinds of pests away. So, and if your neighbor needs a hand, be a neighbor yourself. And it takes a community effort to keep pests away. So.
Thanks. And I would add, if you go in the forest, don't walk off the paths. So a lot of the paths kind of have like gravel on them, and the ticks don't like gravel so much as we heard.
Not at all.
And
no.
B, walking off the path is actually bad for the forest. They don't want you to do that because you're trampling things. So it's not good for you because you could get ticks, and it's actually not good for the forest. Actually, just stay on the path with your pants tucked in.
Stream sedimentation is also undesired.
Well, I think we got a lot of good advice here about mosquitoes and a bit about ticks as well. So thank you so much. This presentation was recorded. So if you missed any of it or you wanted to go back to it, it will go onto the website of the City of College Park. It'll go up there pretty soon. So folks can watch it there. And a really big thanks to both Catherine and Stephen for all the information tonight, and for Brenda Alexander from the city for helping to facilitate this session. And thanks to everybody who turned out and heard all this great information. So thank you for taking time this evening to join us. I think with that, we can close. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a good evening, you guys. Appreciate your info.
Thanks.
Thank you, you too.